Hey there, welcome back to the show. I'm Phil Vischer. This is the Phil Vischer Podcast. I am here with Christian Taylor.
Hey.
Hi.
Phil.
You're red. Why are you red?
Because last week you said I was salmon, and this week I had since it's Christmas week, I had to go full on.
Yeah. And Skye, Jethani.
I was going to wear a Santa hat today, and I forgot.
Oh, that would have been really cute on your bald head.
And I think the furnace is going.
Yeah, it's going to turn itself off. Don't worry. It's off. It's just cooling down. Or complaining that we turned it off.
Yeah.
And you're wearing black, as in kind of Man in Black.
Johnny Cash.
Johnny Cash Christmas. It's a Johnny Cash Christmas.
That's right. It's the night before Christmas. It's night.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
Do you guys wake up and think it's the podcast, I have to wear black or gray?
That's pretty much all I have.
Okay.
But I have a few other.
Because you do seem to have a little more color.
A little more.
I have safe colors.
Safe colors.
Safe
Explain
colors
yourself.
that I know if I wear this, I won't regret it at any point during the day.
That's how I feel about my hairstyle. I don't ever have to worry about looking back 10 years from now at a picture and going, oh, I hated that hairstyle.
Yeah, so when I venture outside of my safe colors, it's risky.
Do you go through half the day in a purple shirt and think, I'm too uncomfortable?
Yeah, that's happened before.
No.
Yeah.
Phil's a rather risk-averse person.
That's interesting, Phil.
Yeah, or I'll try something, like, oh, this is adventuresome, and then I'll catch myself in a mirror and think, oh, that was a bad choice, and then I just go back because then I don't have to think about it. I don't want to have to think about it because it uses energy that I would rather put into something else.
So you want a utopian future where everyone just wears a one-piece jumpsuit?
No, I'd look terrible in a jumpsuit.
But what's
Gray?
interesting...
You look good in a jumpsuit?
I look good in anything.
7 people look good in a jumpsuit, and 3 of them were Elvis. I don't know who else looks good in a jumpsuit.
But they don't have to think about it when you have that set uniform.
Well, it's not just not having to think. It's also not having to think because all right, I look okay in what I'm wearing. I mean, we could all just wear overalls.
Yeah, we could.
But we wouldn't look
and
okay.
straw hats.
But my point is that I think is interesting about you love color. And so you do surround yourself, like here, with pops of color, and your office is very colorful.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you're...
Yeah. See, I don't want to clash with my office. Okay. Hey, it's a podcast. What do you know? Hey, it's a podcast. And we got video. Hey, it's a podcast. So lend an ear. The Phil Vischer Podcast starts right here. Oh, we'll talk to Skye.
Hi.
Oh, come on.
Hi.
Hi, Phil.
Hi, Phil.
Thank you. And Christian, too.
Hi, Phil.
Hi! And Christian's friend Flo is here, but she's not going to be on the podcast for you.
Hi, Flo.
Hi, Flo. She's in the audience.
She's from France.
She's from France. Flo flew from France. Hey, it's a podcast. So lend an ear. The Phil Vischer Podcast starts right here. The Phil Vischer Podcast starts right here. What's your last name? Boucherie.
She's the Flo the butcher.
That sounds delicious. Okay, we got news because we didn't do any news last week because we had a guest on. And first we have a commercial message. But now, before we do our news, we have a commercial announcement from our friend Skye Jethani. Skye?
Okay. Thank you, Phil.
You're welcome.
All right, people, we need to have a heart-to-heart. Here's how it goes. What? Am I too close?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, so I've been talking to my team. I have a team. They're mostly in Arkansas. You know that?
And they don't work
didn't
for you
know that.
full time.
They don't work for me full time.
No,
but
they're
they're
consultants.
They're doing
Does
some
this
work for me.
team have a name?
Smack.
Smack. Okay,
Yeah.
I like
There's
that.
a plug for Smack.
So you've been talking smack?
I've been talking with Smack.
You need a bell.
The bell's down because I have something on here. Okay, so here's the deal. Many of you are aware of my daily devotional, which
I subscribe.
yes, you do.
I'm not aware. Tell me about
Okay,
it.
well, it's the With God Daily Devotional. Here's the thing. I am now completely independent of Christianity today, as many of you know. Mm-hmm. And in order to make this
Does that
all...
mean you got fired for last year's Christmas party?
He did not get fired. I'm going to take up for him.
Yeah, I did not get fired.
Okay.
Anyway, so here's the deal. We have like a budget that we need to meet for next year in order to be able to do the things I do.
So that you can have a house and feed your children?
But beyond that, here's the deal. Because I'm an independent ministry now, there's 2 ways you can kind of do these things. Phil and I have talked about this a lot. One is to go around and raise money, raise support, ask people to sponsor you, whatever. A lot of people do that, and that's absolutely fine. What I've chosen to do, and actually what Phil has chosen to do also, is instead of doing that, we have tried to create actual products or services.
That's not a bad word.
Right, no. Products or services for people that they will benefit from and use that we could then generate revenue from to support our work. And the devotional is a big piece of that for me. And that allows me to do things that I don't get paid for, like this podcast, for example. So as we're looking at what's coming next year and what we need to do in order to support the team and me and some of the projects that don't get any funding, is we really need to grow this devotional. And so the team said, if we can get everybody who currently subscribes to get a friend to sign up or buy a annual gift subscription for someone else, then we would be at the goal we need to be at. And to be completely honest with you guys, I cannot do that kind of marketing. I don't have the time, energy, or bandwidth. So I really need you guys who are supporters of me and this podcast to help out in that regard. And so what they did is created a special landing page for listeners of the podcast. If you go to skye.jethani.com/podcastdevo, all one word, then there's a special landing page for you guys with a discount code and all that to get the devotional at a cheaper rate.
And will it play Devo songs?
That would be kind of cool, wouldn't it?
You could wear
I'd
your
like that.
Devo hat.
I have a Devo hat.
So I know this is coming out just before Christmas, but if you guys have not gone there before and signed up for the podcast, for the devotional, it'd be a great way of supporting this whole group.
Where do we go again?
SkyeJethani.com, SkyeJethani.com/podcastdevo.
Hey, Luke, is there any way we could put that up as a graphic?
There you go.
Hey, we'll put that up as a graphic.
And if you start looking for Christmas gifts for your friends and family, you can sign them up on a gift subscription or get a group subscription for your whole family or church or small group, whatever works for you. And I hope you read it and you actually benefit from it and develop through it in your faith. But at the very worst, you'd be supporting us and me and our ministries. So thank you.
And how
for doing
bad
that.
could that be?
It can't be bad at all.
You're just encouraging him to do more.
And
Do you have any
if you want to be doubly supportive, you
Yes.
could buy a DVD of Galaxy Buck.
Yeah, you could do that.
And maybe
For
you two could
Christmas.
take me out to lunch
And
just
then
to
we could take her out to lunch.
There you go.
Or hire her to do a voiceover.
Or that.
Or something like that. Okay.
Maybe we can hire you to do a voiceover plug for my devotional.
I'd
that
love
runs
it.
on the. There you go.
Let's do it.
Well, and you would be paid by a Kickstarter fund of his fans, so you could do the voiceover for the devotional, so he could make money by selling the devotional.
Sounds like a
So he
plan.
doesn't have to do a Kickstarter for himself.
Sounds like a plan to
Something
me.
like that. It's getting kind of cyclical. Or,
We should invent, like, if we really wanted to support ourselves with a product, we should invent some sort of labor-saving device.
What are you talking about?
Like the George Foreman grill, or like
or like the clapper.
the clapper, or the little bullet blender,
Right.
blender, or those little things that make paninis in a minute, or
What would you come up with?
the George Foreman grill.
That would be
That's
what you
I
came
think
up
we
with?
should come up with.
I think we should come up with like a crazy uncle antidote. Like when you're at a Christmas dinner with your family and the crazy uncle starts saying whatever, it's like you spray
Yeah.
them with this stuff and they
Silly
suddenly,
string.
something like that.
Yeah, it's the theological silly string.
Right.
I like that.
And okay.
Okay, so
Speaking
what
of,
are we talking about
We're
today?
at war, Christian.
We are?
We're at war.
Who's we, first of all, and who are we at war
Everyone.
with? Okay.
We've got a war on Christmas.
No, we don't.
Oh,
We've got a war on Islam.
yeah.
We've got a war on stars.
Yes, we do.
Star Wars.
There's lots of wars going on.
Uh-huh. This is the season of warfare.
Yes.
Merry Christmas.
And the holy season. All wrapped in one.
Peace
Okay.
on earth and Star
Okay.
Wars toward men.
Okay. We saw Star Wars, right?
Yes.
We did.
all of us.
Yes.
We
not
all-
together.
I saw it on opening night.
But we can't review it for you. Well, we can say whether we liked it or not, because Luke, the director, has not seen it yet. He's going to go see it right after this, so we can't spoil it for him.
He's Luke, Skye, Taylor. We need a walker.
Yeah, Luke Skye Taylor.
Right.
Yeah, we need a walker.
Luke Skye Vischer.
Okay, so
I liked it.
you did like it?
Yeah, I liked it.
I was so happy.
You were?
I have been waiting since 1983 for a decent Star Wars movie. And I'm so happy.
I will say that I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Okay.
And there was one part I was very sad about.
But so what else is there to say? You
Yeah.
thoroughly enjoyed
But
it.
I thoroughly enjoyed
I
it.
thought we can say a lot without spoiling it, but like the new cast.
I love
were
the new
fantastic.
cast. Yeah.
The part where Chewbacca had babies.
Stop it.
And, his
And they were
babies.
That is
Ewoks.
not
And they
true.
were Ewoks.
That did not happen,
And
Luke.
they
Don't worry.
fought the Emperor.
The worst is when they fed the Ewoks after midnight.
This
and
did
then
not
they
happen
got wet.
either.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
turned into tauntauns.
None of that happened. What I loved so much was seeing the old characters come back, and I loved the
nice.
response of the audience.
Well, you did feel like J.J. Abrams had a checklist.
Yes.
Like this is what we loved about Star Wars when we saw it when we were kids. These 35 things.
Yeah.
How many of these can I check?
Right.
And he checked an astonishing
great.
amount.
But what I hated about, and I could go all day about what I hated about the prequels, but probably the single biggest thing I hated was there was no depth to the characters and there was no chemistry between them,
Right,
which is what the original trilogy had in spades, and you felt that here.
Yeah.
Well, here's what the prequels, big problem with the prequels was none of the characters was us.
We couldn't relate to them.
Yeah, because they were all either weird politicians, intergalactic politicians, or they were Jedi. Or Sith, I don't really see myself as a Sith.
Or 9-year-old boys that you're just like, come on.
And I'm not a Jedi running around in a robe, speaking never smiling. And in the first trilogy, we had Luke Skywalker, who was basically an Earthling, who was an Earth teenager, and we had Han Solo, who was basically a New York wise guy.
Right.
He was just an American.
Right.
And so those two were our entry points into the first series to see what's going to happen to me in that world. And then they do the prequels, and there's no one like that.
Right.
It's just people having meetings. And
Yes, I don't want to talk about it. I actually
then
won't
sword
let
fighting.
my children watch the prequels.
And what I love about this is it's as they introduce the new one, they introduce the new characters, and you say, okay, these are the characters we're going to be with going forward. They're us characters.
Yeah.
They're not foreign alien characters. It's like, oh, that's how I would react if I found myself in that situation.
Yeah.
I'm in this now, and I don't know how George Lucas missed that so badly.
Well,
Okay.
and they're so deep. Like, what I love is the characters themselves are so deep, and there's so much left to explore.
Oh,
Yeah, lots
I
of
have a
questions.
feeling they're going to make more than one.
More than one,
What,
for sure.
I read a book last year called How Star Wars Conquered the Universe.
Really?
Yeah, did you see that?
No.
Anyway, it's a really interesting book. But one of the things I realized, and it's all the backstory of Star Wars and how Lucas created it and how it grew to become this thing, and it gets into the business of it and how the whole deal. Anyway, but one of the things that becomes very apparent is that when Lucas was developing the original movie, if it wasn't for all the people around him telling him how bad it was and how bad the script was and how bad the editing was and how bad they came around him and really made it into a brilliant movie. And if he was left just to himself, it probably would have been terrible. And so it's revealing then that on the prequels, he wrote them, he directed them, he produced them, and nobody around him told him, you shouldn't do it that way, because at that point he was George Lucas and he was genius and brilliant. And so we owe him a lot for coming up with this whole world, but he's really not that great by himself. It's a collaborative kind of thing. Well, I think it's a lesson, and when you get so big that nobody can tell you the truth anymore, it leads to bad things.
I think there are parallels between George Lucas, Michael Eisner,
And Walt Disney.
King Saul.
I actually agree with you.
George Lucas, Michael Eisner, because Michael Eisner did some amazing things.
Yeah.
Then he became absolutely despised by Disney fans.
Right.
Absolutely despised, so much so that they completely forgot all the amazing things he did to rebuild the Disney company. But then he did things they hated, and the key was he had people around him that were no longer around him. Particularly, he had his partner, his business partner.
Was killed in an accident.
Frank Wells was killed in a helicopter skiing accident. And so then he was on his own, and he tried to find another partner, but he couldn't do it successfully. So then he just went with it, whatever he wanted to do, and became kind of paranoid, and it was a mess.
It is they're all really good leadership lessons that you got to surround yourself with people who have the ability to tell you when you're making a mistake.
Right. That's why I work alone.
Right. That's why you wear
Don't
gray
even
every
get
day.
me started.
I don't feel like I've learned a valuable lesson from
Some people, it's
cautionary tales.
harder to work with others than other people. Some people have a hard time working with others.
That's why the Sith always work alone, or the rule of two. Hey,
So you're saying I'm more like a Sith?
yeah. Well, look at your wardrobe.
Do they wear charcoal gray? They wear
Or
black.
black, yeah.
I don't wear much black. I mostly wear charcoal
wear black.
gray.
But
Because I'm not all bad.
But do you notice all Sith are always white guys?
The Sith are all really?
Yeah.
Wait, was Darth Maul a white guy?
Totally.
He was a red and black guy.
He got tattooed.
Wait,
But he
you
was
were
really-
you were about to say something.
It was really
Yeah, I was going
white
to say, because we
underneath
can't talk about spoilers on here. If anybody goes to my Facebook page, I have
Yeah.
like a lengthy analysis of one of the kind of lingering questions from, it's a theory about who one of the characters really is in the new
We'll have to
Star Wars.
discuss this.
Jar Jar
Yes.
Binks? No. There's some theories about Jar Jar
I
Binks
know there
that
are.
he was really evil and he was behind everything
Right.
bad that happened in Star Wars. Yeah, I kind of believe that.
Well, can we go back to the war on Christmas?
Yeah, War on Christmas. Dump, dump, dump. Skye, I know, for one, gets really upset about the War on Christmas.
Totally.
When people are taking his Jesus away. Let's go to Elkhart, Indiana, shall we?
I've been through there.
Yeah, that's the capital of what?
Elk?
Elkhart.
Elkhart, Indiana is the world
I know.
capital of...
recreational vehicles.
That is correct.
Oh,
Thank
I
you.
did not
ding,
know
ding,
that.
ding, ding, ding. You didn't know that?
No.
RVs,
And
yeah.
I've been through Elkhorn.
Elkhart.
You don't even know where you were, Elkhorn.
I've been there, though.
Judge bans students from performing in live nativity scene. High school students who've been rehearsing a live nativity scene as part of their annual Christmas spectacular are now scrambling to rework the show Sans Mary and Baby Jesus after a federal judge issued an order to nix the religious reenactment from the show. They were
Wow.
They were sued by
Where were they doing this?
at the local public high school. Well, you know, why? Why do you ask?
Okay.
They were sued by the Freedom from Religion Foundation and the ACLU of Indiana. But here's the deal. Concord High School has performed its Christmas Spectacular, inspired by the Radio City Holiday Show in New York City, every year since 1970. It has included the living nativity scene for at least the last 27 years and likely the last 45, the judge's order reads. The fact that this segment, and this is actually the judge was pointing this out, the fact that this segment has remained constant while the other portions have changed or rotated could itself suggest a preference for that segment and its message. Dump, dump, dump. In addition, until this year, every show has included a narration by a faculty member that includes readings from the Bible of the story of Jesus' birth. The religious and Christian message conveyed by these performances with both the live nativity scene and the biblical narration is unmistakable.
So what's the controversy?
Well, people are upset that they're taking their baby Jesus away.
Yeah, but it's a public.
Taking their baby Jesus
It's
away.
a public high school.
Yeah, but so what he seems to be implying is that if it was part of a rotating scheme of
Right.
segments, maybe it would be okay. But because it was every year, it's out.
It's
gone.
a public high school.
What are they supposed to do for their Christmas spectacular?
They do what the rest of our schools do, which is make it religiously ambiguous.
Do you think
But
that's
they-
the right way to go?
they
I think it's a
added-
public high school.
They added
It's not a private high school.
Hanukkah songs and a Kwanzaa song. There's
They
only
did? Oh.
one Kwanzaa song. Yeah, so this year it had Hanukkah songs and Kwanzaa songs, but the living nativity has been thrown out by a judge because it's in there every year. Dump, dump, dump.
That doesn't seem fair.
Dump, dump, dump. Can I say I'm not a big fan of Kwanzaa?
I don't even know what it is. I hate to admit that.
Yeah.
Well,
Can
it's
I-
only
can I-
because it's kind of a.
Can I tell you what it is?
What
What
is
is
it?
it?
It was invented in the 1960s by a civil rights leader who wanted African Americans to reject Christianity and stop celebrating Christmas. So he invented a new holiday based on
It's like Festivus.
Egyptian mythology. He wanted something from Africa. So he took Egyptian mythology and turned it into some kind of a Hanukkah-like thing, a multi-day thing as a celebration of African heritage.
Okay, I gotta ask.
The guy who did it, though, also went to prison for torturing two women that he claimed were plotting to assassinate him. And so he had them bound up and whipped with electrical cords.
And is that how it's traditionally celebrated now?
Yes, that's how you celebrate Kwanzaa. Bind up your women, everyone. Captain Kwanzaa's coming.
But I honestly have I never. How do you celebrate Kwanzaa? What is?
And what's the point of
It's
it?
very Hanukkah-like. It involves certain foods, lighting candles. In fact, there's a little candle holder that looks a little bit like a menorah. So
Well,
it's a
that's-
hodgepodge.
That's interesting because, the Jews spent a little bit of time
In Egypt. Dump, dump, dump.
But
You know?
you gotta
That's kinda
stop the dun
interesting.
dun dun business.
It's so exciting.
It's a lot of dump, dump,
This is so
dumbing.
exciting. This stuff's
Okay,
going
but
on.
I
It's War on
I don't know
Christmas.
if I've met, and maybe I'm just
I
way
don't
too
think anyone
sheltered.
celebrates Kwanzaa.
Yeah, so I was going to ask. I don't think I've met somebody who celebrates
Because it
Kwanzaa.
doesn't represent a religious faith. It's no one's religion.
Well, how is that different than the pagan winter solstice celebrations that we've now turned into Christmas ones. Somehow they had to start as a pagan celebration of something.
But at least they're old, though. I mean, 1960 is not exactly an old tradition.
Well, and I do remember people in the late 80s and 90s doing it, and I feel like it's kind of fallen off.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Probably because it doesn't have a lot of substance.
I have no idea. Hanukkah is older than Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So that's got history, and it's tied into a faith tradition.
Yeah, and a historical event and a ethnic
it's
identity.
based in something.
Right.
It's based in something. I'm all good with Hanukkah.
Okay.
I'm good with Hanukkah.
Awesome.
But how do we celebrate Christmas and avoid celebrating Christmas? This also came up at the University of Tennessee, where the University of Tennessee sent out an online memo advising employees at the university to make sure holiday celebrations were not Christmas parties in disguise. The memo was entitled Best Practices for Inclusive Holiday Celebrations in the Workplace. Nothing sounds like a recipe for a great party
Other than
a
the rules.
memo entitled Best Practices for Inclusive Holiday Celebrations in the Workplace. It says parties should celebrate workplace relationships.
I think that happens quite a bit at office parties, especially when the punch has been spiked.
Results in lawsuits being filed.
Yeah.
Should celebrate workplace relationships with no emphasis on religion, A, or culture, B.
Right.
Wow.
I got some news for you.
What's left?
There's no such thing as a workplace without a culture.
Ooh. It also says holiday celebrations should not play games with religious themes, such as, and I'm quoting, Secret Santa.
Wait. Santa is not religious.
And the selection of decor and refreshments should be general, not specific to any religion or culture.
What?
What's general decor? Besides a jerk during World War II. Remember General Decor?
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
No,
I think
I
it was
don't.
French.
So non-holiday.
Well, I guess that means like pecan sandies and
but green
not
and,
Christmas
what do you
cookies.
decorate with? Green and red. Those are Christmas colors. So that's out.
So they'd have
Blue,
to be
that's Hanukkah.
purple
So that's
and
out.
pink and yellow. And
Well, you gotta.
I think everything just has to be taupe.
You just have to do you just go to Party City and get a Dora the Explorer birthday pack.
Well, but she's ethnic.
Oh no, she's ethnic. That's a culture.
That's a culture.
That's a culture. Can't do that.
Got me.
See this, but that's the same thing with the Christmas spectacular in Indiana. Is if you're
Why can't we
not
include
celebrating
everything?
Christmas.
Well,
Why can't we include everything?
we had our kids' elementary school holiday winter program, whatever it was, last week,
Yeah.
and they do Hanukkah songs. They do. I think they do a Kwanzaa song. I'm not sure.
They have to find. If you want to make money, write a good Kwanzaa song.
They do
You will make a
generic
ton of money.
winter songs. They do Christmas songs, and they always ended every year with Silent Night, where everyone sings Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and it's Silent Night.
Wait. Every year, Silent Night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it says Jesus.
No.
Yeah.
Does it say Jesus?
Christ the Savior is born.
Yeah, but not Jesus.
Christ the Savior is born.
And the Virgin and all that.
Every year.
Yeah.
I think that's illegal.
I think it's a little different. Because whatever. But
So
there is.
I
But
don't-
here's
I
the
don't see-
difference.
here,
For
I don't
years
see
and
what's
years and
wrong.
years, though, they have done Hanukkah and they have done Kwanzaa and they
Yeah.
have done these other things. It isn't
Yeah.
like
I
those
don't
are
see
suddenly
what's
being thrown
wrong
in.
with including Christianity with everything else. Why can't we just all coexist?
Because they need to do like a Kwanzaa nativity scene.
Because now you've got, for example, our friends at the Satanic Temple.
well, they can have their
Lucian Greaves.
Yeah, well, they can have
Greaves.
their satanic song in there too.
Seriously?
I don't care.
You want your kindergartner to sing a satanic song?
That is a little difficult.
That's pretty much most of what's on the radio.
Okay, but
But my
here's the thing.
kindergartner isn't singing it because we don't let him listen to Miley Cyrus or Katy Perry.
But if
yeah.
okay, if we're gonna have to be equal,
Yeah.
then it
so
all
is
has
everybody
to be
in
included.
or is everybody out?
Right, everybody has to be in or everybody has to be out.
Because what the Satanic Temple and what the Freedom from Religion, whatever, want is everybody out. The goal is to make it so.
But how do you separate
the
them?
Satanic Temple is pushing for if you have a nativity on state property, you also need to have a snaketivity, which is their version of a nativity.
Snaketivity.
Yes, which has a satanic-looking snake in the middle of it.
That's fun.
And they're doing that in Michigan. They're putting up a snaketivity next to the nativity. The goal is to just make it so ridiculous that you just say, we won't have anything.
When I was at the holiday program last week with my kids' school, I did notice some other families, because we've been there a while now, there are some other families who are Muslim.
Yeah.
And their kids are singing and participating like all the other school kids. And I was thinking to myself, what if roles were reversed here? Mm-hmm. What if we were in a predominantly Muslim culture?
Like Dearborn, Michigan.
Right. And they were doing some big Ramadan-based holiday festival.
The Ramadan Spectacular.
Right. And suddenly my kids are the ones up there who are singing Islamic songs.
Yeah.
Would I be comfortable with that?
Honestly, if there was a balance, I wouldn't have a problem with it.
Well, what if you were an expat living in Saudi Arabia?
Right.
You still have to do that.
Yes.
I would not have a problem with it. What I have a problem with is when they're trying to X out everything having to do with any of the Christian traditions at all.
The question is not getting rid of Christian traditions. Is should these things be at home in a public school?
Yeah.
Where state funding is going toward it and multiple religious traditions are not acknowledged because the dominant one.
Then I think they should all be out.
Okay, well, I mean, as far as I know a public school, at least in our area, that does anything to acknowledge any Islamic holidays.
Mm-hmm.
But what's hard is, especially with Christmas.
In fact, President Obama just said that we will not be observing a Muslim holiday as a national holiday because there's just too many holidays.
Right. But I'm saying, as where Christmas is concerned, yes, there's a Christian element to it because we apparently hijacked it, right?
Well, 2,000 years ago.
Okay.
12.
Well, no, you said it was the 1800s.
Well, no.
No,
it didn't become an official holiday in the United States until the late 19th century.
A national holiday.
A national holiday.
Okay.
Like the government recognizing it as a holiday.
In the Catholic Church in Europe put the Christ Mass on top of the Feast of Saturnalia in, 400 AD.
So the Feast of Saturnalia was a pagan holiday that was celebrated during December.
Well, yeah, it's
the winter solstice.
The winter solstice.
Okay, and so the Catholic Church decided, well, we might as well celebrate the Christ Mass
which was at the time the only
time.
church.
Yeah, and it made sense because winter solstice is the darkest day of the year when the light starts growing after. So
when life starts returning.
Right. So it's okay. Well, we'll make that the day we celebrate the birth of Christ because he's the light of the world who comes.
Probably had something to do with the Roman emperors who had converted to Christianity and were trying to rid the Roman Empire of paganism.
Right.
Okay, so I'm down with that, but there is this whole thing where
she's jiggy with it, everybody.
So there's this whole thing though where there's a whole pagan aspect of it in our culture now, which is not at all associated with.
You mean the commercial aspect?
The Santa commercial.
That has something
elves.
to do with Jesus. That all has something to do with Jesus.
Really, what?
Well, it's that St. Nicholas.
You never watch my videos, do you?
No, I need to watch that one.
Okay, 4th century.
Here we go.
There was a bishop named St. Nicholas. Have you heard of him?
I have.
Have you ever heard the term St. Nicholas?
St. Nick.
Yes, old St. Nick.
Got it.
Yes, 4th century. He was a bishop in the area of Greece.
Okay.
He was
Turkey.
Okay.
4th century, somewhere in between Greece and Turkey.
Which is why we eat turkey at Christmas.
Stop it.
Not. You're a big fat liar. So St. Nicholas, he was an orphan, but he was rich because his parents were wealthy and they left him all their money. So he became a man of the church because he took a trip to Bethlehem and he was inspired, and then he became a devout Christian, and he went into full-time church ministry and became the bishop of the area. And he would hear about poor people in his area. Rumor has it, so the story goes, he would sneak out at night and toss little bags of money in through their windows if they needed money. Most famous story, 3 daughters who were going to have to become slaves because their father was too poor to set them up in marriage, and that's what happened if you didn't have a dowry. They would end up slaves. So St. Nicholas walked by their house, threw in 3 little bags of coins for their dowries. According to the legend, those bags of coins fell into their stockings that they'd set out to dry.
Over the fire.
And the next morning they found dowries so that they could be married. And it was St. Nicholas. Those legends spread all throughout Europe.
Are they true?
Who knows?
Okay.
There was a St. Nicholas. We know that because he was at the Council of Nicaea where they were resolving the Arian controversy, and he beat the crap out of Arius.
Wow.
He actually physically assaulted.
Wow.
Yes, Arius, the heretic, was physically assaulted by Santa Claus. That is my favorite Christmas story. But you don't see it on TV. We should do a little stop
Very
motion.
bad Santa.
A little Rankin Bass stop motion of Santa Claus beating up Arius.
How about just beating up heretics in general?
Just heretics in general.
That's where the idea of the naughty list really came from.
Yes.
There we go.
Is there a crazy uncle list? Could we have Santa Claus go after some? Anyway, that's separate.
I'm with you here.
So stories became very popular.
Okay.
The legend of St. Nicholas spread around. He was also credited with saving a whole ship full of sailors that were drowning. He saved them all, which is
He
why
took them
How
to
did he
the
do
island
that?
of misfit toys.
a miracle.
So are you serious?
Yeah.
People really said
Yeah.
a miracle happened and he saved them.
Yeah. So he is credited as, over time in church history, he became the patron of children, the patron saint of children, and the patron saint of sailors.
Okay.
Because of those two stories. So the stories spread, especially in Northern Europe. Kids start setting out their stockings, or
Like in France?
or if they're Dutch, it's kind of northern, but not really. It's part of it's southern Europe, but also it happened in France. But in Holland, in the Netherlands, kids would set out their wooden shoes the night before St. Nicholas Day. Not the night before Christmas, because St. Nicholas had his own day, December
it?
6th.
Oh.
Also in December. So the night before, kids would set out their wooden shoes, and then their parents would fill them with candy and treats, and they would wake up on St. Nicholas Day, the feast of St. Nicholas, and say, "Oh, look what St. Nicholas brought us, hooray!" Then, so it was very popular with kids, completely different than Christmas. Christmas was the Christ's Mass.
Okay.
Okay, that was just a church service.
They were going on in parallel universes.
Yes, they were parallel. St. Nicholas Day, Christ Mass. Then the Protestant Reformation happened. And one of the things that Luther and the Reformers decided was, we no longer venerate saints. We're throwing out all of the saints. And then people said, yay, throw out all the saints. And then they said, well, what about the feasts then? Can we still have the feasts? And he said, no, you can't have the feasts. Okay, throw out all the feast days. Well, what about St. Nicholas Day? Because my kids really love that.
And it was a great way of manipulating children into better behavior.
Yes, it was.
It still does.
And he said,
Works that
nope,
way.
you can't celebrate St. Nicholas Day. You can't have the Feast of St. Nicholas. All that stuff is gone. And people were really upset, so they started scheming and said, well, where can we put all these great traditions? And then they said, let's move them to Christmas. And let's not say we're waiting for St. Nicholas. Let's change the story. So in England, they changed it to, we're waiting for the arrival of Father Christmas. Not St. Nicholas, because that's Catholic. And we don't do that anymore. Father Christmas is coming. This is my favorite one. In Germany, they changed it to, we're waiting for the Christ child to come on Christmas Eve and come down the street
And give us
toys. And they said they were waiting for Christ child in German is Christkindl.
Oh.
So that's the night of
So
Christkindl.
then Rankin Bass comes in.
Then Rankin Bass comes in the next year.
We showed Flo that for the first time.
1649, when Rankin Bass were born and started making animated films. So then the Dutch come to New York. Okay. The Dutch
New Amsterdam.
Yes, it was New Amsterdam before it was New York. So New Amsterdam, and the Dutch kids are waiting for. They actually didn't switch. They kept, and still today in Holland, they wait for St. Nicholas to come, and they wait for him to come on December 6th.
Oh.
Not December 25th. And they're getting very cranky because so many American Christmas movies are changing it that people are they're starting to switch to December 25th and thinking about Santa Claus instead of December 6th and thinking about St. Nicholas. So the Dutch kids came, but in Dutch, this is great. In Dutch, do you know how you say St. Nicholas?
Would it be Santa Claus?
Sinterklaas.
Sinterklaas.
Sinterklaas is Santa Claus in Dutch.
No, it's St. Nicholas. Right?
What?
Isn't it?
Sinterklaas.
Sinterklaas, but that's St. Nicholas.
Yes, that's St. Oh, yes.
Yes,
Not Santa
yeah,
Claus in
right.
Dutch. It's St. Nicholas
And that's
in
where
Dutch.
we get Santa Claus from in
Yes.
English.
So
is
the
from
English
Dutch.
kids running around New York were hearing the Dutch kids saying, oh, we're putting out our wooden shoes to wait for Sinterklaas. And they wanted to do it too. So that tradition spread to America through the Dutch, but we anglicized the name to Santa Claus But and we put it on Christmas because that's when we want it. And the first time Santa Claus ever has a flying sleigh was in a children's book written in the late 18th century.
The night before Christmas?
No, that's where much of the traditions came from, though, that poem. But that was in the 19th century, written by a Baptist pastor. The flying sleigh came in an earlier children's book about St. Nicholas, produced by the St. Nicholas Society of New York, which after New York was losing its Dutch influence, it was a group trying to keep the reverence of St. Nicholas alive in the now English New York. And they made a book where, because at somewhere along the line, St. Nicholas had been turned into an elf. Which is why in the night before Christmas, it says, St. Nick, that jolly old elf. It actually calls him an elf.
How about that?
They thought he was little at that point.
Well, that makes sense.
To get down the chimney.
Right.
And do everything he has to do.
Yeah.
It'd help to be little, like
like
Ant-Man.
a gnome.
Yes. So that's how St. Nicholas, who beat up Arius over his bad theology, turned into an elf and then turned into Santa Claus.
How did he get fat?
The Coca-Cola Company started painting those pictures
I think
on
the
their
Coca-Cola
advertisements.
company is responsible for a lot of people getting fat.
That's for sure.
A lot of people don't know that Santa Claus is actually a type 2 diabetic.
Yeah, he is.
Well, so then that proves my point that there's this entire secular arm of Christmas. That why does that have to be thrown out if it has nothing to do with?
It has everything to do with Jesus, because St. Nicholas, he gave gifts to show people the love of Jesus.
Well,
so
that's what we say now. That's what we Christians now try to like Christianize.
And if you want to tell that story to your kids, look up my video, Why Do We Call It Christmas? Because we illustrate
Did you ever see John Lovitz? He had a skit years ago, probably back in the 80s on Saturday Night Live. About
Hanukkah?
Hanukkah Harry.
Hanukkah Harry.
I missed this.
Yeah.
He, instead of a sleigh with reindeer, he had a sleigh with a donkey. It was named Shlomo, I think.
Yeah. So my point being, I don't know. I have no idea what my point is.
Your point is that even the tradition of Santa Claus is deeply rooted in Christian lore.
And if we really want to avoid any Christian connotation for what we're celebrating at the end of the year every year, we need to throw everything out. You just throw it all out and do Festivus for the rest of us.
I don't think you have to throw it all out. I think we are becoming an increasingly pluralistic culture with a lot of different religious traditions, and it's increasingly difficult to say that the Christian tradition should be given the spotlight over everyone else.
But everyone wants to keep celebrating Christmas.
Maybe in Elkhart, Indiana.
No. Walk into a store, any store. Do they want you to celebrate Christmas?
Well, they want you to celebrate it in an American consumeristic way.
Yeah.
But that's different.
How is it different?
It's different because it's not religiously rooted anymore. It's become...
but okay. Do you know anybody that says, I don't want to buy anything? Actually, I know one person who doesn't even want to walk in stores during Christmas, but she is Jewish. But I can completely understand people who are non-Christian or from a different religious tradition or atheist or whatever who don't want their kids going to school and being read the Bible and taught Christian stories. I understand that. I do too.
So, that's when America was nominally Christian, it made sense to behave that way.
We're still 80% nominally Christian.
Well, in some places it isn't.
Yeah.
And that's why the courts are doing these things.
I think it is in Elkhart, Indiana, though.
It probably is.
I think it is. And Tennessee, for that matter. And those are my two stories for the week.
Well,
I'm not talking about, San Francisco here. I'm talking about Tennessee. If we lose Dollywood, what do we still have? Oh. Hello.
I have to pick up my honey-baked ham.
Stop the podcast, everyone. We have to go get a ham. This break brought to you by Honey Baked Ham, a perfect holiday treat, whatever the holiday might be.
Except Hanukkah.
Or Ramadan.
That too.
Okay.
Can I ask my one question that's burning on young parents' minds?
Is it okay for you to celebrate Santa Claus?
There are lots of parents of young kids that are making this critical decision.
Yes.
They are Christians and they're trying to decide, do we, do the Santa thing or not?
You can do the Santa thing, but point back to St. Nicholas. tell the story of St. Nicholas.
So is it okay to play out the myth, or is that lying to
I am
your
completely
children?
against Santa Claus.
You are?
Yeah, but for reasons you wouldn't expect.
Well, what are they?
Because I spent a lot of money on those gifts, and I am not going to let that credit go to some mythological figure. I want my kids thanking me for those presents.
Yeah, we never told our kids their presents were coming from Santa Claus in a way that would make them think it was true. I would do it as a joke sometimes. They'd say, "Who's this from?" Because they give gifts to each other. They know that they're buying gifts for each other. We never did that.
We were never against the Santa Claus thing, but we never really played it up either.
Well, I have to say, I played it up big. I love Santa Claus.
That doesn't surprise
and
me.
I, with each one of my children, they each had their section of the living room, and their presents were sort of laid out, and they would sit at the top of the stairs and say, wait for me to check and see if Santa had come. And so the thing that was so shocking to me this year is when my 25-year-old, finally my 14-year-old knows the truth, and this was the first year there was to be no Santa.
How could it? How did he?
It's Josh. He just believed, and regardless of what everybody told him,
None of my
just
kids
believed.
have that gift.
No.
But anyway, they put on a mutiny this year because I told them there was no Santa Claus and we weren't going to do that part of our Christmas morning, and they're like, "That's
it's
the
a
best
family
part."
tradition now.
Yeah.
You made it a family tradition, so what are you going to do?
But they aren't scarred or marred or anything else because
it hasn't even come out yet. No, do what you want with Santa Claus, but I think it's healthiest to point back to the...
Are you being a bad Christian if you do that?
If you say, don't believe in Jesus, kids, only believe in Santa.
Then you're being bad?
Well, the interesting thing is that Santa's theology is terrible because he will only give you things if you're good.
That is true.
And
that's
if you're
the
bad,
opposite
Yes, he's the anti-Jesus.
Yeah, he really is.
Yeah. Okay. So, if you want to teach that to your kids...
We had a children's book that did tell the story of St. Nicholas, at least the legend of St. Nicholas.
Was it the one I wrote?
You wrote one?
I did. It's called Why Do We Call It Christmas? The book.
No, this predated that book, I believe.
Oh, okay.
But that's what we used to do, is go back and tell them the story of St. Nicholas. And
Did you still put out gifts from Santa?
I think we may have, a little bit, but not the good ones.
The good ones all came
The good
wrapped.
ones I and my wife would definitely claim credit for.
Oh, see, I did it the other way around. All the best ones came from Santa.
No, Santa does not deserve that kind of credit.
I get your point now. I wish somebody would have told me that. I would have done it the opposite way. Makes sense.
You were young.
I know.
What are you going to do?
So young.
What are you going to do?
I remember one year I did, you leave the cookies out. Mm-hmm. And one year I did type up a note on the computer in like this really fancy script from Santa to the kids and signed it. And they kind of bought into that.
I did that every year.
I did that once.
I did that every year.
And honestly, my daughter was probably 4 years old, my oldest, and she looked at me and just kind of rolled her eyes. Like they've never...
I cannot lie to my kids.
Sitting
in a Mexican restaurant once on the north side of Chicago, and I overheard a conversation between two people at a table next to me talking about their hyper-religious relatives who did not allow their kids to believe in Santa Claus, and whether that was like a form of child abuse. How cruel it was that these Christians wouldn't give their kids Santa.
I have some relatives like that.
It's because it's your tradition. I mean, obviously...
I feel guilty because I feel like I'm not a good Christian because I did the whole Santa thing.
That would also apply to more than 1 billion Muslims who have never promoted belief in Santa to their kids. Are they also abusing their children?
No.
I don't think so. And then the Jewish population, and everyone who isn't in the Christian West.
Well, I think to Christian's point, I think Santa Claus is kind of pan-religious now, at least in the American consumer.
There was an anti-Christmas protest in Japan this week. There was an anti-Christmas protest in Japan by young single males.
What?
Why?
Because Christmas has become popular in Japan, but it's celebrated as being about love, romantic love, and family. And
they don't have either.
Which is what it is.
Young males... single males, and some of them are not young.
Japan is having a serious problem in this area.
And they call themselves.
What's the problem?
The people aren't getting married and having kids anymore because
there's a
messed up.
A lot of single men that are just drifting through life unattached, and so they protested by marching.
Well, they're attached, but it's to their computers.
Then why are they protesting? Skye. They were happy with their halo. They wouldn't be marching down.
Okay, so they're
Suzuki
protesting.
Road.
Why?
Because Christmas demeans them because they're losers. They actually have loser in the name of their group.
Well, hey, if they're self-identifying
as losers than they are.
It's ironic that in a country with no Christian heritage, Christmas has been imported to the degree that people
have to
feel
protest.
like they have to push back against it. And it's commercial. It's entirely the stores doing it because they're on the internet and they're seeing what works in Macy's, and we want some of that. Okay, there's also a war on Islam. Did you know about that?
I have heard of that one.
Jerry
I've heard of
Falwell
that
Jr.
one, too.
Did you hear about Jerry Falwell Jr.?
Yes, I did.
Yes, I did.
So, Jerry Falwell Jr., God bless him.
Is he? Never mind.
The head of Liberty University, founded by his father, at a chapel convocation, said, here's what he said, talking about the San Bernardino shootings. If more good people had concealed carry permits, then we could end those Muslims before they walked in and killed them. He said, if some of those people in that community center had what I have in my back pocket right now, is it illegal to pull it out? I don't know. He had a gun in his back pocket at the time because he has his concealed carry permit, and you should always have a gun in your back pocket. That makes the world safer. I've always thought that if more good people had concealed carry permits, we could end those Muslims before they walked in and killed them. I just wanted to take this opportunity to encourage all of you, his college students.
Which is like, what, 10,000 students?
10,000 in the room, 100,000 online. To get your permit, we offer a free course. Let's teach them a lesson if they ever show up here.
Wow.
And this is what disturbed people the most. The crowd went wild.
There's been quite a few pieces written about this, including some students who were there who disagreed with him.
Yeah. Well,
And there was a very, very thoughtful piece. I wish I had been prepared. I didn't know we were going to talk about this. But Christianity Today published a piece on their hermeneutics blog by a young woman, I assume she was young, who's a student at Liberty who was there when he gave this address. And she was talking about why it was so disturbing to her. And it was really a very thoughtful piece because she said what bothered her so much was not what he said, particularly about carrying guns, but the excitement of the crowd cheering at the thought of killing Muslims.
Yeah.
And she referred back to the celebrations that happened when it was announced that Osama bin Laden had been killed and how many Christians were celebrating.
It's a little disturbing.
And what she said, which was so thoughtful, I felt, was, yes, this is sometimes a dark and evil world in which there are terrorists and there are bad people, and sometimes violence is necessary to contain evil and to kill Osama bin Laden. Stuff. Those things are necessary at times. But should we really be cheering and celebrating when that kind of violence is necessary?
Right. I say no.
So that's what bothered her. Is when did the Christian community in America become so not only comfortable with violence, but celebrating it as a great thing that we want to kill people?
Halo 3.
We are messed up.
Lethal
Seriously.
Weapon 1, 2, 3,
we are
and 4.
messed up.
I wonder how much of it is just movie pop culture
I just wish there would have been a spirit of, hey guys, this is a dangerous world. There are terrible things that are happening, and it's a horrible thing, and let's grieve over that rather than celebrate killing people.
And then let's grieve and then arm ourselves to the teeth.
Well, that's a whole nother factor. And I've gotten into this on Facebook a little bit, and I almost regret it because I think some of our listeners and others are totally annoyed with me about it.
And then
there's more.
And then our local college, Wheaton College.
Yes.
Front page of the Chicago Tribune.
Really?
Where are you going here first? Are you doing the response to Jerry Falwell?
No, that's part of it.
Yeah.
That's
okay,
part
I've
of it.
missed this whole thing.
Oh, it's big.
It's
Wheaton
big.
College, our local college, Christian college. My mom teaches there. Front page of the Chicago Tribune. Not all ink is good ink. Typically, you'd say all ink is good ink. This is probably not good ink. This is what happened. Larisha Hawkins, a professor of political science at Wheaton College in Illinois, recently made an unusual gesture to show solidarity with Muslims. She decided to cover her hair with a hijab. Muslims, like me, a Christian, are people of the book, she wrote on Facebook, explaining her decision. And as Pope Francis stated last week, we worship the same God. Dun, dun, dun. I had to do it again. I had to do it one more time. And the hijab did not get her into any trouble.
It's what she said about the
we
same
worship
God.
the same God got her suspended by Wheaton College, which then that news story blew up online and ended up on the front page of the Chicago Tribune, among other places. Online people got really, really nasty. The Chicago Tribune was actually quite balanced and said, well, Wheaton College does have a statement of faith, and if she violated it,
Yeah, but that's the problem. Is it's not clear she did.
That's the problem. Is it's fuzzy.
It's fuzzy. So does a tenured professor deserve to get suspended for a semester over what is a theologically fuzzy issue that a lot of evangelicals would frankly agree with her on, including some who have taught and lectured at Wheaton College? That's the ambiguity here.
Yes.
If she had like totally clearly violated the statement of faith of Wheaton College, a suspension may have been justifiable.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of
so you
disagreement.
don't think it was justifiable?
I don't know. I haven't.
Scott?
But here's the thing: like the debate, the theological debate about whether Christians and Muslims worship the same God, has been going on for years and years and years. And a lot of people make parallels to Judaism and Christianity. So a lot of times Christians would say, well, we and Jews worship the same God, just disagree about who Jesus is. And some people say the same thing about Islam. Well, Christians and Muslims worship the same God, the God of Abraham, which is the foundation of Islam as well. We just disagree about who Jesus is. And that's, I think, the point she was making. But this is an area of theological debate and controversy. There are very Orthodox Christians who would agree with her. There are very Orthodox Christians who would disagree. And there's nothing explicit in Wheaton College's statement of faith about this issue. So,
have you read it thoroughly?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I mean, there's nothing that says we Christians and Muslims do not worship the same God. Yes, we
Right.
disagree about who Jesus is, but we disagree about who Jesus is with Jews also. And yet no one gets bent out of shape when you say Christians and Jews worship the same God. So
Right.
I'm not taking a side on it theologically. I'm just saying
Right.
this is a debated theological idea.
I wonder if it would be as controversial to say Mormons and Christians worship the same God. Because the great similarity between Islam and Mormonism is that there's an extra biblical text
Right.
that you don't have in Judaism. You know, so Judaism, there are some other things.
Yeah, but at the end of the day,
we added on to Judaism, and that's okay with us.
Right.
Right, I get it. I mean, there's a lot that we could parse out here
Don't add on
about
to
the
our
theology,
thing.
but the central thing in all these cases, whether it's Mormonism, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, is they all fundamentally disagree with Christianity about who Jesus is. And she's
Right.
not saying anything differently there. But again, this is a gray area. It's theologically ambiguous. Wheaton has had lecturers, including very committed Christians like Miroslav Volf and others, who would agree with her on this lecture at Wheaton. The question is, does the punishment fit the crime? You may disagree with her theologically, but does
Right.
a tenured professor at Wheaton College in very good standing
Right.
get suspended for an entire semester over something which is gray
Right.
rather
That
than
seems
black
a
and
little
white?
I say no.
Maybe.
I say she shouldn't have.
We have one vote no. We have one vote no.
Yeah, strong no.
Well, that's why this isn't going away, and I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of fervor on campus about it.
There is a desire to paint it as extremist, though. And even
well, it
like,
comes across that way.
Well, I mean, Martin Marty, who's very well respected at University of Chicago, weighed in and says, no, it's understandable what they did. This is a fairly deep controversial issue. He gave different thinkers and what their position is. So, some prominent thinkers are saying it's kind of understandable how she got herself into hot water. They're not getting into as much, what's the proper response? Is it a semester? Is it a week? Is it a slap on the wrist?
But here's the thing.
Do you have to wear a hijab? That
I have an
says,
opinion
"I'm
here,
sorry"?
and my and not that I have anything that has anything to do with Wheaton College, but when you're dealing with something that is ambiguous,
Yeah.
it sounds to me more like something like, hey, you know what? We need to put together a panel of Wheaton theologians or whatever. Sorry about that.
That's not about his honey baked ham.
Oh.
to come to clarity on this. This is an issue that we as a school should probably get some definitive answer about. And until we have that, this professor's on notice. We're not going to suspend her because we haven't made a decision on it, but this brings it to light. We need to make a decision. I think the decision to suspend her before they've come to a clear view of it theologically,
Right.
it makes me wonder if there's some politics going on here.
Politics?
Yeah.
What is
Why would
Well, I
that
mean,
have to do with
with any
Politics
large
are good,
organization, there's a lot of stakeholders. There are
Yeah.
funders. There are
Right,
trustees.
that's
And
true.
I-
We're
and-
just
That's
kidding
true.
you.
And this is
That's
at a very it's a boiling point moment for the role of Islam in our culture, given the terrorist attacks and Donald Trump and rhetoric coming from various candidates. And I think that she touched a nerve.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there are people who are stakeholders in Wheaton College who are just like, no way, we're not.
Right.
We don't want to be associated with this.
Right. Right.
And there was pressure.
It's a messy world we live in.
It is. kind of messy.
I just think we all ought to love each other.
Let's just celebrate Christmas. We won't be here next week as we're all out on various Christmas excursions and adventures.
Not me. I'm
Are you in
actually
town all week?
home. Yes.
No, I'm not around.
I'll be around.
I
but
brought France to me.
we have guests.
Do you want to do a podcast all by yourself?
No.
Okay.
I'll be with my family.
So, Merry Christmas, everybody, and I will try to wrap it up in a suitably...
I think you should summarize the whole year.
Are we doing a New Year's podcast? I guess we need to talk about that.
I don't know.
It'll have to be after.
We'll have to figure it out.
Okay.
Hey, folks, do you really like Santa? Do you celebrate him, or can't you get your head around it theologically, even if you like it biologically? Because we all grew up with it traditionally, but in Elkhart, Indiana, it's looked at suspiciously by the judges at the circuit court. So, what runs the court? Mort?
That's what I was going to say.
It's time
By a guy named Mort?
Put on our thinking caps and try to sort what we really think is worth fighting. Because Christmas tree lights they are lighting, are they still as bright if they're holiday lights? Or should you pick up a candy cane and wage a big fight against the satanic temple that wants to put a snake in your nativity? Okay, I think that summed it up very well.
Bye, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.